You have to adapt to the current day. The way that you would get a woman today is not the way that you would get a woman 40 years ago, 100 years ago, 1,000 years ago.
That's why they say be better and
be better how? Be top 1%? That's not real advice.
I agree.
You're talking about how they're arming men to succeed. They're not arming men to succeed. They're barely talking about how top 1% men can bang women. Maybe I'm just missing the conversations, but I've never in my life heard these guys talk about, like, how do you get in a relationship? How do you maintain a relationship?
Right. Men rarely act like children. Women almost always act like children. Men built this world and continue to maintain this world. If women took a day off today, if all women took a day off today, no one would give a shit. If all men took a day off today, the world would come to a crash and halt. What are you talking about, dude?
Are you screaming at me or him?
I'm screaming at you.
Okay, well, firstly, you came here acting like a child, saying men don't act like children, so I think that's very funny.
Okay, first of all, number one, hey, hold on,
I'm not responding. Debate a male feminist with blue hair.
Take game advice from them. I wouldn't do that. Yeah, no, I wouldn't take game advice from them. But as far as when he's in a debate with the chicks, when he makes a point, he lays out an argument, they make a counter argument, and then he counters their argument. Is he correct or incorrect in what he's saying? That's what I look. Okay, come on, somebody got background. Is he correct or incorrect in what he's saying? That's what I look at when I'm analyzing it. That's it. That's pretty much it.
If they listen, if they want to bring me on, just tell them to DM me on Twitter at the Liberal and give me a link and I'll hop on. Oh, how's it going?
It's going good. It's going good. Yeah. So I don't even know where to start, but what prompted you? To come on up?
Well, I mean, I stream a lot.
You're live right now on your channel, if I understand it right.
Yeah, I'm always streaming usually. Somebody in my chat told me.
Okay, cool. So that makes sense.
Yeah, some manosphere dudes are getting triggered by a fresh and fit appearance, so I thought I'd stop by.
Not triggered. Just broke it down and analyzed some things. I guess I'll start right there with the clip that I played. Basically, long story short, they were arguing the point that who's closer to loving unconditionally, the person who essentially requires less conditions, and you argue that the person who requires more conditions is the person that for some reason was more likely to love, more closer to loving unconditionally. And it definitely seemed as if you conceded the point towards the end.
Well, I think I never conceded the point. I said he changed, I think, his argument, right? Because I think, didn't he initially open with who loves more? And then he changed it. No? Well, we can rewatch it because I'm almost positive that his initial question was like, who's able to love more or something? And then it was like men or women. And then eventually it was like, okay, well, who can love more unconditionally? I think he changed it in the second part.
No, I re-listened to that and I know he did it. He did it early on. I'll try to pull that up. It's going to be kind of hard to pull it up. I mean, I don't know if that's that important to you that we need to pull it up to make sure we get that part right. But I do know he said that who's more likely to love unconditionally. I do know for a fact he definitely said that. And it did seem like you came to understand it later. I know you're saying that he changed his point later. You're saying he changed his point later, but no, I think he said it from the beginning. You probably just didn't hear it.
Maybe I misunderstood it initially. Yeah, I don't know. I think the question is a little strange. I don't know who could love more. I don't know if that's like a male versus female thing, but yeah, it's possible that I misunderstood the initial question. We clarified it, but.
Okay. So I guess I'll start right here. What was one of your biggest problems you had with Fresh and Fit when you were on their show? What was one of the biggest problems you had with something that they said? I guess we'll start right there.
I think their entire model of breaking down male-female interactions is like really wrong. I don't like I think it's way too adversarial. I think that they're completely out of touch with what normal women are like. And I think that the way that they analyze the world and they tell young men to act, I think creates so much more of the world that they hate. Like they're setting everybody up for failure or to become people that they wouldn't like.
All right, explain what you mean when you say it's adversarial, because I know some men would view it. Some men would view it that way. Because a lot of men are lost out there. Dealing with women. They don't know what they're doing. I mean, like they quoted the stats about the 30% of men being incels or not having any sex in the last last year or something like that. So clearly there's a breakdown with men in dealing with modern women. And I think your approach, and you could clarify this, your approach is that, they need to clean up yourself and be a little nicer or whatever. But it seems as if you don't look at it as much in this situation where women have changed. Like y'all talked about, they can work and make their own money. A guy making enough money to basically put a roof over her head, that's not enough. He has to be able to do more. He has to be able to present more. And if this regular woman who would get with a regular guy who could, put a roof over her head and that was enough, is basically saying this regular guy has to go above and beyond regular just to get with a regular chick. So that,
well, no, I mean, like, I think, yeah.
Okay,
so, I mean, I agree with you that like men have to do more now, but like what they were doing before was like an embarrassingly bare minimum. Like you have to work a job and that was it. And now you have to actually be a good partner. And I think that men need to spend more time like figuring out what it means to be a good partner in a relationship. I think it's a little bit. Yeah. Go ahead.
Obviously, you understand there still was some relationship dynamics. I mean, yes. Working a job and being able to provide, yes, that was the basic standard. Being able to protect and provide, that got the man in the door. But I think that's some propaganda to think that the guy was beating her over the head with a club just because I can provide and take care of you. So you're going to get beat over here with a club. No, there was definitely some relationship dynamics and understanding and conversations. I mean, women. I don't buy the idea that women were just as downtrodden and beaten up by these men who they needed. I think it's more so a situation that when women needed men, families worked out. Soon as women didn't need men, now all of a sudden families don't work out. To try to circle that back and try to pin that on men for not being nicer or not doing more or not going above and beyond to be an above average man for this average chick that she should be happy with him. You're telling men basically get out there, tap dance in a top hat and be excellent for these chicks.
What you're saying is be excellent or pull up or like go above and beyond. I would view as like bare standards for being a decent human being. If your only way of getting a girl ever was like relying on the fact that she couldn't work, that means you're a weak man. That means that you just don't offer anything. You're nothing. Like you're just a body that shows up at a factory, puts something together, and then goes home and thinks that that's enough to like land you some sort of relationship. And in the past it was, but I think it's a little bit sad that our standards would revert to that and that we think it should go back to that. Like, oh God, like this woman can work, a job, and now the fact that my paycheck isn't enough to win me a wife means that I'm completely and totally lost and hopeless. I think it's time to like step up and like be an actual decent person, like figure out how to be emotionally available in a relationship, figure out how to be a good partner, figure out how to make a woman date you, other than the fact that like society says she's not allowed to work a job and get a paycheck.
All right, I want to circle back to the beginning of what you said. I was going to cut you off, but I wanted to let you finish and get it all out. Circling back to the first thing that you said is that you saying, no, you have to be a decent human being. You haven't first substantiated the claim that these men who were taking care of their families were somehow not decent human beings. You haven't substantiated that claim. You're just believing, I think you're believing on faith that they were terrible human beings. I think that's what you're doing. And therefore, when you believe that on faith, you can now say that, oh, well, you have to be a decent human being. You got to first substantiate your original claim.
Sure. So I would say that the emotional availability of men, the ability to communicate with...
What does that mean?
Being able to understand how somebody feels about something and being able to have like emotionally fulfilling relationships or conversation with somebody that extends beyond just being there, earning a paycheck, and having kids, right? Who
listens to the other person more? Do women sit there and listen to men cry on their shoulder more, or do men listen to women cry on their shoulder more? Because if men have to listen to women and all their problems and crying on the shoulder, I think that's men being emotionally available. Right.
So the fact that your emotional vocabulary is limited to either extreme anger or crying on their shoulder is showing exactly what I'm talking
about. Those were the examples that I gave.
No, those are those you gave. But every single time I'm talking about this, like people will go like, oh, like guys have to cry and break down. Like there is a whole gamut of emotion that people can experience. And if being emotional or understanding emotion is just like somebody crying on somebody's shoulder, there's way more to life than that. There's way more emotional experience than that. And I think that historically, I think that the archetype of man has typically been one of like stoic, emotionless, doesn't talk to anybody, has PTSD and commits suicide at 3x the rate, but doesn't complain about their problems, goes overseas, kills people, doesn't report about their depression, comes back and goes postal. Like these are like the classic like problematic archetypes of man that I think we're like kind of sort of having to work through now in society, because it's not enough to be that now and get a wife, because you can't just capture them with paychecks like Pokemon.
All right, going back to what I said. I just want to make it clear.
Yeah.
I want to make it clear. I wasn't saying that those were the only two range of emotions. Those were just the examples that I gave in a conversation where I obviously can't write out an essay. So when I said crying on the shoulder or listening to her problems, like women come to the table with more emotions. They're more emotionally volatile. The person who they typically dump that on is the man. So I'm saying right there, even though men may not, be as talkative and want to come throw all his problems on her, the fact that he's there, like who's the guy who's there and listening? Who's the guy who's there and listening to her and talking to her and even helping her and giving her advice and even solving a lot of those problems? To try to say that, again, the term emotional availability, emotional maturity, I think, first things first, those are not really measurable, tangible, quantifiable terms, and women like to live in that safe space of talking about things in a way that they can't quantify it. But that's fine. Even if I go with you down that rabbit hole, that man lives with that woman for 24 hours. I don't think it was a time, well, maybe you go back far enough, but it's not a situation where men are just popping women in the mouth saying, shut up, I don't want to hear your problems. No, men, that's part of the deal. That's part of the deal. I think a small percentage of men could just beat their chest and say, I ain't listening to your problem, go tell your friends. But I think most men are there for their women. So you're coming at it from a perspective, again, I'll go back to the point that I don't think you properly responded to. You started with the notion that men were just naturally bad people, and then now the game. But... Okay, well, you technically did when you said they need to be better people.
Yeah.
That implies that they weren't as good and they need to get better.
Yeah, I don't think men were bad.
I don't think. Okay, but I still don't think you substantiated that claim. I still don't think you substantiated either claim.
Yeah, okay. To be clear, I don't think that men were bad, okay? So I've written down what you said, and I disagree with almost every single point you said. I think all of these are wrong.
Okay.
So one, you said women come to the table with more emotions. They might come to the table with more emotions, but that doesn't mean they have more emotions. Men have plenty of emotions that they just don't know how to process and they don't know how to work through. If I had to guess, it's probably because from a very early age, men aren't really taught properly to deal with their emotions because we tend to externalize things. When boys get mad, they want to like punch and hit things, and parents will say, no, don't do that. So you're kind of taught to repress from an early age, whereas women tend to express things more through talking. Hold on, wait, hold on. You just talk for a whole like 5 minutes.
I'm giving you the thumbs up. You got it.
Okay.
You got it.
So when women express emotions as children, it tends to be through things like crying or complaining, and that's okay. So they're usually taught to process those emotions healthier, right? I think men tend to carry more of this like up baggage, repression, and shit with them through life. I think this is why men comprise like 80% of suicides versus women, right? I think it's because men have a lot of emotional problems that they can't process. When you say women are more emotionally volatile, I hear this claim over and over and over again. Women are more emotional. Women are emotional. Why? Oh, because they cry more. For some reason, anger is never viewed as like an actual emotion by any of the Redpill community. When we say women are more emotionally volatile, do they cry more?
It is.
Yeah, sure. But like guys will bump into each other at the club, scuff their shoes, and then somebody's dead like 5 seconds later, right? Like how many, like when you're hearing about things like domestic violence, like who's causing more of the damage? It's men. When you're looking at things like violent crime, like 98% are men, right? So when we talk about like who's more emotional, like yeah, women might be more sad or they cry or they do things, some of the times. But I would argue that sort of emotional expression is way healthier than guys that kill themselves over stupid shit. And this is a huge epidemic. Wait. You said like 10 wrong things. I gotta go through all these, okay? When you say, well, you talk a lot, dude. So I'm gonna respond.
I get it. If you want to go
point by point, we can. But if you're gonna rattle off a bunch of things, of course I'm gonna rattle off a bunch of things. It's
all right.
Fair,
okay? Let's going forward. Let's go. Let's go closer. Hold on, real quick.
Yeah.
Just going forward after you go through my 10 things. Let's try to go closer to point by point.
Yeah, I like that. I like it.
I got caught off guard with this. I don't got my.
Sure, that's fine.
I want to write down some of this. I want to write down some of the shit you're saying, but.
Sure, I just use a notepad or computer. You said women dump emotions more on men. That's not true. Women do not have emotional conversations with men because they can't. Because men today aren't able to. That's why if you look at the differences between conversations women have with women versus conversations that men have with men. And every comedian ever has at least one joke in the routine where they've laughed about this, where a guy goes, hangs out with the woman of his dreams, goes home, and his friends are like, oh, how'd it go? And he's like, okay. Like, oh, did you have fun with her? Yeah, she was cool. And it's like women will be like, oh my God, I saw this guy, he made me feel this way, he did this thing, and blah, 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 blah. There's so much more emotional unloading and sharing that goes on when women talk to women versus when men talk to men. That's just true. When you say men don't dump their problems on their women, maybe
they don't.
Okay.
I said he don't.
You said
women. I said women do that more. Just like what you just said. When a woman, you said when a woman talks to a woman, and she has so many things to say. Or the point that I was making is that when she's talking to her man, she also has so many things to say. So when you use that undefinable, unquantifiable term about emotional availability, I'm saying that he is being emotionally available to her if he's there to listen to all her shit.
Sure. I mean, I guess, but I think in general, I think men have a much harder time having these sorts of conversations than women do with other women. When you say men give advice or help people or solve problems or whatever, oftentimes, like as a piece of personal advice, this is usually somebody failing to listen. Oftentimes when people are complaining about something, they're not looking for somebody to try to like fix a problem. They just want somebody to be there to empathize with them, to hear a problem, and then just kind of do that. You said that emotional maturity and availability are not quantifiable / measurable terms. Sure, but like just because something is hard to quantify doesn't mean it's not important or it doesn't exist. Like maturity is hard to quantify, but we can definitely see that some people are more mature than others. Women want to talk about things they can't quantify. I mean, men talk about, dude, half the Redpill conversations are about things like sexual market value. And the last I checked, there aren't any like PhDs publishing math papers on how to like measure that concretely, right? Like these are like, everybody talks about these types of dynamics that are really hard to quantify. You say men live with women for 24 hours. It's not. You say men live with women for 24 hours. What the whole classic archetype and joke of a guy is, I want to get home from work and I want you to leave me the fuck alone, right? How many old sitcoms, how many episodes of Roseanne or All in the Family or any of these like old sitcoms, it's like the guy comes home from work, he sits down, and as soon as he does, the nagging wife comes and it's like, did you do this with the kids? Did you do that? And the guy's like, just leave me the fuck alone. Where do you think the concept of a man cave came from? Men work, they come. Hold, let me finish. I gotta go through. If you want to go point by point after we can, but I gotta respond to everything.
You're streaming. Hold on, real quick. You're streaming live on your show, so I understand this is like technically your show too. So I don't want to, I'm being fair, but you're floating a lot of shit out there.
Yeah, I agree. That's why I felt when you were speaking. That's why I wrote it all down. Yeah.
That's why I said
I got like two things.
After you finish, okay, you got two more things.
Yeah,
after you finish your two more things, we're gonna go point by point.
That's fine.
So therefore,
I'm cool with that.
Okay,
you said men are. You keep alluring. Or you keep alluding to this idea of like men popping women up. I'm not saying that men were like abusive, horrible fucking people. All I'm saying is that traditionally, the domain of like man in the relationship of men and women was to just like earn a paycheck. And I think that's pretty shitty. I'm not saying men were all like abusive.
Wait, hold on. Say that again. Say that again. I'm sorry.
That in a relationship, traditionally, like if you go back like 40, 50, 60 years ago, or especially like pre-World War II, all men had to do was like earn a paycheck. That was like their biggest contribution to the relationship. As long as they earn a paycheck, they're like good. And I'm saying that now the standards are a lot higher. Men have to bring something to the relationship besides just a paycheck because women can work. Okay, that was basically all of it. Okay.
All right. So now, obviously, I'm not going to get to everything that you said there. You said about 10 things I disagree with too. I didn't write all that shit down, so I'm not going to get to all of that. But when you said something about men being more violent in relationships, I'll start right there, and we'll take this one point by point. This is RM, drop that down. Drop that the Cash App thing down. I don't need to see that. I'm trying to show something on the screen here, and you just brought that up. All right, I got it. Okay. Okay. Let's just go right there, because when we're talking about women or men being more emotional, one, you talked about violence when it comes to men. Okay, first things first. There's obviously a lot of men on the far end of the spectrum when it comes to men being violent and killing one another. Like we understand that. We understand men have more testosterone, they're more aggressive, they fight more, they usually fight and kill men the majority of the time. That's something that men do. It's awful, it's messed up. So we get that. But when we're talking about interpersonal, because you did this with Myron a lot. When he's talking about the social dynamics between men and women, you would take it to, sometimes the dynamics between men and men, which is going to be different, which means that men, if men are more violent and more murderous when dealing with men, but they tone it down when it comes to women, that means one thing, that clearly they're putting in check the aspects of their violent or emotionally volatile nature when it comes to dealing with women, because they're not attacking women in the same way that men get attacked. But
I'm just curious. Can I ask a question on that, just in the same vein before we go? Like, if I were to look up, and I don't know these numbers off the top of my head, but if I were to look up like deaths of women, and I were to see the percentage of like men versus women that kill women, do you think of all the women that have died, do you think it's mostly women killing women, or do you think it's mostly men killing women? Or do you think it's about 50-50?
No, I think it would be 50-50. We recently were talking about that, and somebody did bring up some data that I don't have in front of me. But when it comes to killing, yes, men kill more than women. That is an issue. That is a problem. So don't know what larger point that you're trying to make there. I don't know what larger point you're trying to make there, but no, I'm willing to say, even without looking at the data, that they're on the far end of the spectrum of the bell curve. There's a bunch of psychopathic, murderous men who kill more. I'm willing to say that, and that doesn't negate any point that I'm trying to make. Because when you talk about violence in a relationship, the data on this goes as simple as this: the majority of relationships are nonviolent. 84% of them are nonviolent. Only 16% of them there's violent. When it comes to those violent relationships, 58% of it is bidirectional. That means two people are being violent towards each other. And 42% of it is unidirectional. That means one person is being violent. So when you look at the unidirectional relationships of which there is violence, the relationships where there's unidirectional violence, meaning one person being violent, 66% of that, 2/3, is perpetrated by women. So you can look at the data right there and see that in relationships, women are more violent towards men. So I will say that and circle it all the way back to your previous statement that they're better at keeping their emotions under control because they've been taught to do that from the start early on in their life. When they cry and they get patted on the head, oh, that's okay, it's okay to cry. Apparently that still doesn't matter, because even when they get in relationships with men, when it comes to unidirectional violence, they're more violent than men in these relationships. So that debunks your initial claim that they got their emotions more in check.
So I don't think having your emotions more in check is a direct line to of all the people that get physically abused in a relationship, who's more likely to do some of the physical abuse? Because the first question would be, well, how many relationships are physically abusive? Because if all the relationships, if like 5% are physically abusive, of those 5% of the women and then that 5% that abuse their partners, does that mean that all women now have less emotional control than men? I don't think that's like a non sequitur data-wise.
Say that again.
Sure.
Say that again.
So you're trying to take the minority of relationships that involve physical abuse, and you're trying to say that since women are more physically abusive in the minority of relationships that have physical abuse, therefore we can say that all women are not more emotionally mature than men. That doesn't logically follow.
No, I don't get what you're saying right there, because clearly the example that I use the relationships of which there's violence.
Sure, but more violent, so it might be that within
all right, hold on. I see what you're doing. And yeah, I don't think you realize that you kind of debunked one of your previous points, because you used the men that are on the violent spectrum or on the killing spectrum and said, men are more this or men are more that. When I did the same thing and I showed data for it, then you wanted to step back and use a broader lens and exclude those. You're bending over backwards to try to take women being more violent than men in relationships off the table. If they're more violent than men in relationships, I think it stands to reason that they're more argumentative, combative, bitchy, and cussing the other one out. I just think that's not a far reach to say that the group of people that are more violent in relationships are also the people that are the most argumentative and causing the most problems. I don't think that's a far reach. So why would you try to exclude the violence and say, let's look over here at this, let's take it to an immeasurable, unquantifiable place so I could just advocate for women. That's what you really just did.
Yeah, okay, so I'm not trying to advocate for women here. I don't care about advocating for women. So backing up, originally we had the question of, the reason why this got brought up was, who is more emotional, right? And I'm trying to think of like, well, what are ways that I can measure who is more emotional? Well, I think that anger is a type of emotion. So if I look at like homicide rates, like broadly speaking, I can see that things like men commit way more violent crime than women, right? A lot of these are like crimes of passion, or things you could argue are like stemming from some kind of emotionality, right? I don't know if like a hyper rational person commits violent crime. That was one example. Another example
we were talking about interpersonal relationships and social dynamics between men and women. So,
well, hold on. No, I was broadly speaking. Where this point came up from initially was I was just broadly speaking in response to the idea that women are more emotional than men. And then I gave the example of from childbirth. I think men are kind of taught to repress because it comes out in physical ways, and women are taught generally more to process. And so I think that's why for men it comes out in more toxic ways. So for instance, men are way more likely to commit crimes. Men are way more likely to kill themselves. These were just a few of the examples I gave. Now, if you want to challenge me within relationship dynamics, when there's physical abuse, women are more likely to strike the other partner. Now, they don't do as much damage as men, because even if you've got a chart showing how much women abuse men, if we look at a chart to see who ends up in the hospital more or where severe damage is done, that's like 95% favoring men over women. Not to excuse the women that hit their partners, that's not okay either. But if you want to talk about within abusive relationships,
hold on. We're taking it point by point.
Sure.
I don't have the data on that, but even if I'm trusting your data, and I know this, and I've talked to countless number of men, I know that's not empirical data, but men don't. men tend to walk it off. Men typically not going to go in the hospital, basically, holding their swollen eye. Men typically aren't going to do that. However, I will grant you a point in the sense that men are in position, just in terms of just pure muscle mass, they can cause more violence. The reason that they can cause more damage. I definitely will grant that. But the reason that I even brought that up to begin with is that you try to let women off the hook as not being these emotional train wrecks. If they're hitting more, they're being emotional train wrecks. And also, it's very much worth pointing out, and it was a video that just went viral, and viral videos are not empirical data, but it's just a good shining example that's fresh on everybody's mind. Bowling balls are heavy. Household objects and appliances are heavy. So a woman just knocked the guy out with a bowling ball, if that video was real. So yes, somebody that you're around the house with, that you live with, that you sleep around, you go to sleep for 8 hours around her, she can do damage to you. So I don't.
Sure, I understand this, but
okay,
we're getting a little silly. We can talk to people, but like if you look at like who's more likely to die from domestic violence, right? It's like 82-18. Women are 82% more likely to actually be killed by their partner than men, versus men are like comprised like 18%, right? The backing up again on the macro level, the reason why I just don't like these statements, you're saying that let women off the hook for being emotional wrecks. I'm not trying to let anybody off the hook. I'm not trying to attack one side. Well, yeah, because you're viewing this as like adversarial. The reality is that men and women are both emotional. Men and women both have emotional problems, and these problems come out in different ways. But I think, and I don't think this is arguable, I think that men for the longest time have not been taught healthy ways for how to deal with their emotions. Do you think that that's true, or do you disagree with that? Do you think that men have been taught? Like that's like and then the examples of that I gave were like domestic violence or like suicide rates or whatever. And I guess we can argue inside of those if you want to get into it. But I think broadly speaking, do you disagree with that point, or?
No, I agree that something needs to be done. And this space have talked about that a lot. How when men go to therapy, is normally a woman, completely different ideology, who's not really processing what he's saying. So yes, there are legitimate issues that men do need to work out, and some mechanism or infrastructure does need to be in place to get men the help that they need, whether it's coming home from war, PTSD, all of that stuff. I definitely 100% agree with you that something needs to be in place. The reason it came off as if you were letting women off the hook, because you predicated your argument by it's like you came in trying to argue that that women weren't as bad with this. I think when I showed you an area where they were bad, then you try to equalize it and say, okay, well, men just need to go work on these things. Like if you would have just started saying, hey, I think men got some things they need to work on, then we just would have had a conversation about things that men need to work on. But
well, sure. But I guess the issue that I have is that like when we talk about there are things that men need to work on, the feeling that I get, especially when talking to Fresh or Fit, and it felt like you were saying something similar, was that, well, no, the problem isn't that men need to work on things. The problem is that the standards have gotten so much higher, and women's minds are being poisoned by things like social media, and they have all these higher expectations, and you want men to be way, 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 way better. I do want men to be better. Like, I think that the standards for maintaining relationships way back in the day were really fucking low, having a paycheck, and now you have to actually be a real partner to gain a relationship. But it feels like for the Red Pill guys, it's always like attack women, attack women, attack women. So when I come in, I'm usually not here to defend women. I'm just here to say, like, men have a lot of the same problems. That can come off as a defense of women, but trust me, nobody shits on women more than I do on my stream, and I've had a lot of history of doing it.
Really?
Yeah, I'll attack women for a lot of stupid things they do. And I think a lot of the world right now has been built up for women emotionally, whether we're talking about college support, where women are out-graduating men by 20 points, 60%, 40%, whether we're talking about, you brought up therapy is a really good example. The vast majority of therapists are women, and women can talk to women better probably than women can help men with their problems. That's all true, and I agree with you, but all of it is going to further my point of women are doing better than men in a lot of these emotional regards because so much of the world is geared towards helping them. And I think that on our side, we need to gear the world more towards helping men rather than saying fuck women for making all this progress. They need to go back to not being allowed to work so that we can just earn a paycheck and earn them that way, right? The goal should be to elevate men. Yeah.
No, that ain't it. Just fuck women for making all this progress. That's not it. That's not what's going on. As far as the market changing, and you say that the Red Pill community basically says that men just need to stay the same and not adjust to the market. No, that's not true. That's literally not true. I can quote you so many people in this space where they say so many things that get on your purpose, become successful, increase your value, and you know, like that's a normal conversation.
That's not
space.
normal. Or it's a normal conversation.
Hold on, wait,
okay.
hold on. Even the example that you gave that we rolled in on when you talk about, you know, fresh and fit, like, yes, they acknowledge all the bullshit in the market. They acknowledge what men are legitimately up against. But their philosophy is a philosophy. And I mean, I personally don't think it will really work. But a lot of what they're saying is that what they're basically telling guys, you know, go out there and become super uber successful and be one of the top percentage of men. That's ultimately what they do when they do their shows that already don't got the women on there. They do something called Money Mondays and all of that stuff where they're trying to basically, you know, give men the tools that they need to do better, because they're like, the market isn't going to change. The women aren't going to change. You got to beat the market. And that's pretty much what what a lot of people
I understand what you're saying, but like
says.
that advice is
so acknowledging the change of it, acknowledging how these women is, that ultimately arms men with the tools that they need in order to go out there and compete in the market.
Okay. So I disagree with the last statement. So when you say, what is the red pill advice? My argument is the red pill advice is dog shit because it's only applying to 1% of men. And even on Fresh and Fit, the last time I was on there, not this was the time before that.
That's why you
just said a whole bunch of shit, so I'm gonna respond.
I'm agreeing with you. I'm agreeing with you. That's okay. Why I said it won't work, because I think you're being a good dating coach and a life coach if you tell a man, hey, get out there and become a top 5%er, but you're being a shitty social scientist, because every man is not going to become a top 5%er.
Sure. So when
every man is not going to become a top 5%er, you do got to look at the overall market and what's going to happen to the regular Joes at the bottom and in the middle. In the middle. Okay, go ahead.
When I've been on these shows, they've admitted that their advice only applies to the top 1% of men, right? So if all of your shows are geared around giving advice to the top 1% of men, right? And as you said, like, they want you to go out there, be uber successful, gain uber amounts of money. Not most people can do that. Like 99% of the people listening to your shit are not going to do that. So that advice is garbage. It's not good advice. And when you're gearing everything around like, oh, well, this is how you can pick up women by being a 6-figure guy that's, you know, super tall, gets jacked in the gym, whatever. It's like, okay, well, 99% of your audience is being, not only are they being left in the dark, they're being turned down like a really dark black pill incel path, because now all they're being told is like, if you can't hit these standards, women won't fuck with you. Women are hypergamous. Women naturally select for the top man. None of this is even true, by the way, but they'll say this over and over and over again while telling their audience the only way you're ever going to get these women is to be as successful as we are. When you talk about how like they want to elevate men and they don't want men to be like, well, no, you said a bunch of shit, so now I'm going to say a bunch of shit. That's how it's going to go. Okay, yeah.
Goddamn. How many points? How many
3 points? Only 3 points, because when I started writing, because you want to talk a lot, right? When you talk about like growing men to be something better, that's what I would talk about. This is 2023. We need to grow men to be better, to adapt to the modern age. But all I hear red pillars speak about is traditionalism. These guys are obsessed with Islam now. Okay, they want to go back to the Stone Ages. Like, women need to go back to this, men need to go back to this. In order to succeed as a man, you got to be traditional and do blah 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 blah. Wait, shit. Did he dip? Wait, did he actually just leave? Oh,
my bad, bro.
I'm sorry.
I was trying to pull up a notebook so I can type and write.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah, you're good. Okay. It feels like they're saying traditional. Like, I don't think traditional is the way to go as a man now. You got to adapt. You're in a modern age, right? You have to adapt to the current day. The way that you would get a woman today is not the way that you would get a woman 40 years ago, 100 years ago, 1,000 years ago. And then the final point.
That's why they say be better and
be better how? Be top 1%? That's not real advice.
I agree.
Okay, then we agree that they give dog shit advice. That's good. Okay. The final point, and then you can respond. The final point was, you're talking about how they're arming men to succeed. They're not arming men to succeed. They're barely talking about how top 1% men can women. I have never in my life, and maybe I'm just missing the conversations, but I've never in my life heard these guys talk about, like, how do you get in a relationship? How do you maintain a relationship? Right. What should you look for in a relationship? It's always like, these are how you bang hoes. This is how you get chicks to this is the Bugattis that you need to buy to get the maximum number of girls riding your and that's the only thing I hear. How is that helping men to succeed when the advice is so hyper-targeted and it's only targeted towards hookup culture and not actually getting and maintaining relationships? There you go.
All right. So I do want to make one thing clear. And I've said this on my show a number of times, that if somebody is giving advice that's only going to work for the top 1%er, they are not giving good overall broad advice. And I just said that before you came up here. Mm-hmm. I don't think that somebody should listen to them for their overall general game advice. There's aspects of it that I've always said that I disagree with. I think when they're arguing the points, the views, the sentiments of men, I think they're typically getting it right. The majority of the time. When they're analyzing how women operate, how the market has changed. The part where I think you're getting it wrong is that you're saying that the space overall is just hell-bent on traditionalism and doesn't give modern advice. This space came into existence basically because it's giving men modern advice on how to deal with how modern women are operating. That's what the space does. And you're straw manning it by saying that it's just a bunch of people just basically saying, become the top 1%er. There is an emphasis on success and being all you could be and being the best. And you even talked about that when you're saying that a man is going to have to do more. Yeah, part of that more that he has to do is become more successful and build himself up. There is some character things and personality things. You haven't substantiated that men are lacking in the character and personality department. You haven't fully substantiated that. You're basically just operating on faith that men just have terrible personalities and they're just awful. I mean, I know you said that you didn't say that, but those are the practical implications of what you're saying if you follow the logic all the way home. So you're operating on that assumption, and then when people are trying to ultimately essentially say that this is how you adjust and maneuver in this modern market because it doesn't operate the way that it is, you would then accuse them of being stuck on some type of traditionalism when the reality is they're not being 100% stuck on it. They would like things to go back to that. A lot of people, myself, I would like things to go back to something more traditional, but I understand the practical reality of what things are, and it's just generally not going to work that way. It's just generally not going to work that way. But to say that trash advice is being given, I don't think you've substantiated that. I think you've typecast and strawmanned and basically saying that's this whole space is saying be the top 1%er and you will get chicks.
That's basically what it feels like to me every time I listen. Is like you got to make yourself successful, you got to become a high value man, and then once that happens, like the girls and shit will follow.
So do you deny that simple point that if you become more successful that you will have an easier go with women? But there are other ways to win.
Well, sure, but I mean, like, also if you pick
there's a lot of guys that talk about your game. When you're talking about game, I mean, I look at it as just social skills and simple do's and don'ts when dealing with women. Like, so that's a big part of what they talk about, or what a lot of people in this space talk about. So that's why I don't understand exactly what you mean when you're essentially saying that the only advice is to become a top 1%er. If you become a top 1%er, yeah, you dunked on the goddamn game. You won. But within that, yes, the way that you maneuver, the way that you operate, those are things that people talk about all the time when it comes to dealing with women. So I don't know how you could just stereotype it or straw man it into being just this one thing. That's a very convenient trap to try to set.
Okay, so here's a question. From all the entire Red Pill space, what is like a couple of pieces of advice that they give for maintaining healthy relationships?
Okay. When it comes to maintaining healthy relationships, they talk about you do need to be the leader. You need to operate and move from a position of power. Women do like a man who's in control, so they talk about it from that perspective. I definitely talk about it from that perspective. I talk about it from the perspective of if you're dealing with the woman, make sure you're dealing with the woman on your terms. If she agrees and complies to your terms, and then you have your two people moving forward in the same direction that actually agree, that are working towards a common goal, that she's following your lead. Because a woman, I mean, we can talk about all this egalitarian stuff all we want. The fact of the matter is, a woman wants to be with a man whose lead she could follow. And so you need to be the leader. You need to be in control. You need to manage the situation at every end and every turn. So yeah, those are the simple things that I say. And I'm no dating coach or game coach, but those are just the simple things that I say to make sure that you're doing it on your terms. That's more or less. And the women who rock with you, who like with you, or the woman who rocks with you and likes with you, she will typically comply to your terms. And once that's established and once that's going on, then you can maneuver within there. Like it's a multivariant analysis of advice. And I think, I mean, it's easy to just pinpoint one thing and just say, that part is bad. The part that you pointed out that's bad is the part that I agreed is bad if that's the whole of your advice. But it's not bad advice to increase your value. It's not bad advice to become a top 10%er. It's not bad advice to become a top 15%er. That's not bad advice. It increases your options. It increases your reach. It increases what you will be willing to do, and so are able to do. And you will tolerate far less when you become more successful. So that part of it is not a bad thing. And I don't know how you could even look at that as a bad thing. The only way you can say that that's a bad thing is if you build a straw man and say that's the only thing And that's not the only thing.
Yeah, so I guess the issue that I have is that, and this is broad, and we don't have to get too deep into this because this will be a whole other conversation, but when I hear red pillars talk about women, it honestly sounds like they're talking about like children. Like that's what it feels like. Like almost everything you describe.
Sometimes women act like children. Yeah.
And men don't?
Yeah, some men do act like children, yeah.
Okay, so that statement you just made was pointless. Sometimes women act like children, but sometimes men act like children. So the real answer is sometimes people act like children, right? But that's not what you're saying. When you're saying you need to be a leader, you need power, you need to be in control, you need to deal with them on your terms. Like it sounds like you're either talking about training a dog or raising a child. Like that's what the advice sounds like, broadly speaking. And when red pillars talk about relationships, that oftentimes feels like what they're talking about. But again, I would argue that this sort of view of a relationship is highly traditional. I don't know if this is as applicable in the modern day world. And I hate to come across as like a blue-haired, blue pill, gay, whatever the fuck, but like when we talk about like relationships, I think that the emotional expansion of what men are capable of is like the big frontier that they need to push into. The idea of this like be a leader, take control, all of this stuff, like the dog raising strategies, that's some shit that might have worked like 50, 60, 70 years ago, but I think you have to bring more to the table than that.
Okay, but one thing is hard to change is nature, and I'll just speak personally. My woman likes to follow my lead. She likes to look up to me. She wants to be with a man who's bigger, stronger, smarter, and able to. She likes being with a man who's better than her.
Yeah, but are we giving advice on the show on how to date your woman or how to date women in general? That's great if your woman likes that, but like
I think that applies broadly to women in general, regardless of what they say. With all the feminist propaganda and everything out there, the fact of the matter is the guy who they end up with is a guy who they look up to, who they feel comfortable following. Now, within the framework of that following, yes, of course you could. You're going to listen to her from time to time. Of course, you're going to hear some things that she's saying. Of course, absolutely, 100%. Of course, you're going to have a relationship. You're going to have a relationship. You're going to talk. You're going to communicate. But the fact of the matter is that if you build yourself up and you're a man that she respects, and sometimes there's a such thing as a man who just has a certain type of mentality that she could respect, whether it's his success or whether it's just his mentality, how he moves, or just how she feels about him. The fact of the matter is that woman looking up to that man and following the lead of that man, regardless of whatever feminist propaganda or whatever is going on, that is valuable to relationships functioning, because if she can't follow the lead of that man, with a lot of them, they tend to lose respect. And when they lose respect, that's where a lot of the arguments and the combativeness comes from. That's where relationships fall apart. If it's clearly defined and understood who's the leader, and one person is leading and one person is following, that reduces arguments, that reduces conflict, that reduces everything bad that can happen in a relationship. Not saying things can't happen badly, but if a guy is basically, trying to acquiesce to the woman, then she's gonna, in most cases, look at this as a controllable man who she could bend to her will. And then when that happens, it just increases the probability that woman is not going to have the full respect of that man. That woman is not going to have the full respect of that man. And I think that's where a lot of guys run into a lot of problems. That's how a lot of guys ended up in this space, because they couldn't understand or make sense of why they were ending up in situations where they thought they were doing everything right, but this woman still was getting out of pocket with them, was still being disrespectful. And that's so men learn things. And AM, I saw you down there, Angryman. If you want to, I wouldn't open it. I see it's a lot of people in the back. I wasn't opening it up for nobody. But if Angryman want to come up and get a piece of this, Angryman, you got it.
Well, here, listen. I should have got it scheduled. If you want to have another more in-depth conversation on this tomorrow, we can. I mean, like, obviously, I disagree with every single thing you said. I think all of your advice is like good dating advice if this was like the 1920s. But like people have changed, times have changed, standards have changed. Even that appeal to nature.
So men should bend to how women have changed.
Women have, yeah, women have changed dramatically. So why can't men change?
Women have changed.
Are men the only ones that can't evolve? Women they work jobs, they do better in school, they are leading successful lives. Like if women have been capable of doing all these things,
they burned a lot of bras in the streets in order to be able to do that. So you're saying it as if they like they graciously did something they didn't want to do. No, they got what they fought for.
Yeah, of course. And they fought to change it. They fought to do these things. That's great. So if you want to be like a man that could get a woman, you have to follow suit. You can't just sit here and cry that like women are working now and now it's too hard and blah, blah, blah. I think men can catch up too. I think men can do just fine. There just has to be people out here that respect women the way that women, at least at the very least, respect themselves, right? And I think that all of these people preaching like one-sided open relationships and that women just like they can't change and nature is nature, blah, 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 despite the fact that women today are way different than they were 100 years ago, whereas men seem to be stuck in the past. I don't know. I don't think that's a successful.
All right. Real quick. One thing I gotta say, I don't argue from the perspective that men can't get women. That's not my thing. And the red pill manosphere space, I think, is separate from the incel space. The people who argue from the perspective that men can't win in today's game, I'm not with them. I'm with the ones who saying the game is different, understand how it's different, and operate accordingly, given the fact that the game is different.
You keep saying that, but like all of your advice is like traditional dating advice. Nothing you've said is different. Everything you've said is that like women want strongly, like everything you're describing is like the archetypical like 20s male. Like nothing is different. So how are you saying that like
because there's aspects of nature that hasn't changed, and so I'm going to stand on that. Obviously, the game is different, but when you talk about women changing, no, I think they fought for more freedom, and then that's cool. This is America. They're supposed to have life, liberty, pursuit of happiness, and the whole works. They're supposed to have all that, but that has changed the market, and men are talking about the change in that market and the things that they need to do to deal with that market. And I think that you're essentially gaslighting men out of reaching better clarity of what's going on in the market, where the game is different, the market is different, but a lot of the nature is still the same. And in my experience and experience of a lot of men, regardless of all this new age feminist stuff that's going on, women still want to look up to that man and follow the lead of the man. That's what I'm saying here. But I know you said you had to go, but
man, what is you waiting for?
Here you go. You right here. I got you.
Let this dude run away. Soon as you said my name, he talking about he gotta go. Nah, don't go nowhere.
Okay.
Don't go nowhere. Stay your ass right here. First of all, Bernard, I don't know what you doing up here, bruh. To go back to what you said, men rarely act like children. Women almost always act like children. Men built this world and continue to maintain this world. If women took a day off today, if all women took a day off today, no one would give a shit. If all men took a day off today, the world would come to a crash and halt. What are you talking about, dude?
Are you screaming at me or him?
I'm screaming at you.
Okay, well, firstly, you came here acting like a child, saying men don't act like children, so I think that's very funny.
Okay, first of all, number one, hey, hold on,
I'm not able to respond to your whole statement. You're just gonna sit here and scream the whole time. Okay, if that's what you want to do, go for it. I have an 11-year-old kid, so I'm used to somebody just screaming the whole time. Go for it. Yeah, what do you got?
First of all, dude, you're acting like a woman.
Oh, well,
don't tell me how to talk.
Gotcha.
Okay, just because a man raises his voice does not mean he's acting like a child. Do not do that shaming tactic crap with me.
I'm just making an observation. You can scream and whine all you want. That's fine. I'm all here for your crying, dude. I'm here for your emotional outlet, okay? I'll play the woman part, and you can treat me like your mom if that's what you want to do, dude.
Address what I'm saying.
That I'm acting like a woman? What do you want me to say? How am I supposed to address that?
Chill with the shaming tactics. Be a grown man and address my talking points.
Okay, I didn't hear any yet. What were your talking points? Said if all men took the day off, the world would fall apart, and if women took the day off.
Would you like me to repeat it?
For a lot of the men that succeed, they can only do so because women are holding it down at home, right? Bullshit. If these guys bullshit. Who the fuck is taking care of the kids when men are out working?
There are plenty of successful multimillionaire men that do not have children and are not in relationships. Try again.
Okay, so do you think that the goal of man shouldn't be to have children?
The goal of men is to continue to make sure this world spins. Some men may choose to have children, others don't. Multimillionaire men can have surrogate women and have people watch their kids or send their kids to freaking boarding school. Try again.
Okay, I guess in the world where men are buying surrogate women and are sending their children to boarding school at age 0, and I suppose those are all being worked at by men as well. Bro,
women.
I don't know what you want me to say.
They're not buying women. They're not buying women. What are you talking about? Buying women.
What do you mean getting surrogate women and sending their children to boarding school?
Don't women get surrogate women?
Tell me what you mean when you say surrogate women. What are you talking about? Just somebody to watch it like a babysitter, or are you talking about like a surrogate, like have a child for me?
What I am talking about, because you seem to have difficulty understanding. If a man is a multimillionaire and he doesn't want to deal with the issues of being in a relationship and he decides he wants to have children, he can get a surrogate mother to have a child for him, or he can adopt a kid, but he still has the ability to have someone watch that kid for him without being in a relationship.
Okay, I'm gonna repeat this because you're having trouble, probably because you're really emotional, understanding my question. So I'll ask one more time. What do you mean by surrogate woman? What do you mean by surrogate woman?
You're deflecting.
I'm not. I just asked you a question. You just deflected again.
Yes, you are. You don't know the definition of a surrogate mother? You don't know the definition of that?
All right, real quick, y'all, real quick.
Not real quick. You don't know the definition of a surrogate mother?
I'm trying to figure out how you're using it.
Destiny. Come on, man. Come on, man.
He made a simple point. You're saying that men need women, and he was just pointing out that there is a way for men to ultimately raise a kid without a woman.
Yeah, I'm just curious. When he says surrogate, is he just saying? I'm a
single dad. Men can raise kids without women. We can.
Well, no, but I mean, you're gonna have to get a babysitter or something, right?
I mean, yes.
Are those babysitters usually men or women?
It could be either or.
Okay, so
aren't you the new age guy that thinks everything is freaking, gender neutral and equal? Why couldn't it be a guy?
I haven't said anything about everything being gender neutral and equal, but that's cute if you think that. I'm just trying to figure out my
bad. I'm making an assumption. You're the one with the blue hair.
Fuck, there are so many things I could say right now, but it would power your shit. Like, I don't want to hear you crying about, I can't do it. I can't do it because the problem is if I say shit to you about the way that you look, I'm gonna get canceled by your entire crowd. So I'm just gonna peace. It's fun. Have fun.
Destiny, you leaving?
Is this a rage quit? Is the Destiny?
I can't say shit to this guy, dude. It's like beating up a fucking 9-year-old. This is like arguing with a retarded child. What the fuck am I supposed to say? This is a bait. This is a bait for me, right? I'm rolling around in the mud with a pig. I'm gonna walk out dirty. This guy's gonna go home the same as he always has been. So it's been fun. I enjoyed it.
Destiny, real quick.
Yeah,
hold on. AM, Destiny, let me ask you one more question.
Yeah.
Did you know about Angryman before today?
No, I have no idea who this guy is.
Okay, because it seems like when I mentioned him that you start trying to leave, so I was thinking it maybe was some history.
No, I've got a thing scheduled in about an hour and a half. There's another person I was supposed to talk to, so I didn't want to completely cut them out because I randomly jumped on your show. That person messaged me about 20 minutes ago. If you want to set up another convo, I'll be streaming tomorrow, same time. We can talk for as long as you want. We can scream at each other. Right. I can help you work through your emotions and everything, Angryman.
You'll talk to Angryman tomorrow?
Yeah, if you want to. I start at 12 EST, and I'll be streaming for 4 hours. And we can chat. We can work through his femininity. He seems like he's got a lot of things he wants to talk about.
Hold on.
First of all,
let's get that set up. Wait a minute. Let's get it set up.
I'm not emotional. You know that, sir. Stop.
Let's get it set up. Let's not talk past the date, okay? Destiny, you're gonna be on 12 p.m. 12 what? AM?
We can talk 1 p.m. tomorrow EST if you want. I'll be free for 3 hours.
1 p.m. tomorrow EST.
Yeah.
And so if Angryman go live and he and y'all come merge it in together and that's a date. Y'all can go at it tomorrow. That fair?
Yeah, sounds good to
me.
me.
You with that, Destiny?
Yep.
You with that, AM?
It is what it is.
All right. Well, we got a date for tomorrow. I didn't want it to seem like you just ran because Angryman showed up. I think it's only right you set up a date for tomorrow. So it don't look like
I'm doing this out of the charity of my good heart. I don't have an obligation to talk to anybody, but I'll talk to him. That sounds good. Yeah. Okay.
I understand that.
Get the fuck out of here.
That's all right. I'm all about giving back to communities and everything. So I'm here to do charity just for you, Angryman. That's what I'm here for. Okay. That's what I'm here, dude. It's all good, man.
A lot of that racist liberal came out right there. All right, anyway.
No, that was the blue hair liberal. Have fun. I'll be back tomorrow.
Okay, yeah.
I can't. When they go in an appearance, there's like 52 million, 2009 insults that pop in my head, and I can't say anything. I feel like I got my arms tied behind my back, and I can't. It's so hard. Holy shit. Because these guys can go in on my sexuality, they can go into my blue hair, they can go into my lifestyle, they can go into anything. And if there's every insult that I could possibly do towards them that's stereotyping is gonna be in time to cancel Destiny. I don't even know if I should with these people, or if I should have a rule where I can't talk to I just can't talk to black red pill people, because it's there's 52 different ways that I could my entire life up if I'm not careful. Holy shit. Destiny, why is racism your only comeback? Why is calling me a switch hitter making fun of my blue hair or making fun of my wife? Why are those the only comebacks? What do you mean? It's not bro, my racism can be a lot more creative than their homophobia or cuck jokes, okay? I got a lot of creative racist insults I can make, but I'm not allowed to say any of that shit, whereas they can go like super hard, super personal, super appearance-based. I can't say anything, dude. Like, it's, oh God. Oh shit. Black online debaters are like the new trans people. My hands are tied behind my back. I can't insult their appearance. I can't insult their lifestyles. I can't insult any data about them. It actually is the same fucking shit. Holy shit. I just figured this out. Fuck me, dude. Hey, what's up? I'm sorry. How you doing, buddy?
Oh, sorry. Hello.
What's up?
Just totally zoning out.
Nice.
Good. How are you doing?
Okay. I got to take off, I think, in like 40 minutes, though, so you're always catching me like right at the end of the few scheduled things I have, but what's up?
I was just watching the end part of it. I think you have... I don't understand how you, like, endure that.
You know, it's a lot of practice. When people call me a cuck all the time, what they actually should be referring to are those types of conversations. Because goddamn, there's like a million things I wish I could say, but I can't anymore because of the year we're in. But
why do you have those conversations?
I'm 34 years old and I have a lot of experience in terms of like sex and dating. And the red pill people today that dominate online conversations, unironically, sound like, not only do they sound like they don't have any experience in relationships, a lot of them don't have any sexual experience either. And so like the types of advice that are being given to like young men that are dominated in these spaces by people that suddenly have no relationship experience is really sad to me. So I don't know. I feel like it's like important to at least have some of the conversations, but Jesus Christ. Yeah.
Do you feel like you're having an impact though? Like, are you actually having any sort of change?
My impact somehow, it was kind of surprising, but I think the impact is really big. I've had like a pretty big explosion in popularity over the past, like, I think 4 or 5 months. And a lot of it has come off the backs of like arguing with these communities. Yeah.
Oh man, that's such a conflicting set of incentives. Like I would hate if I were in a position where like the key to my success was like engaging with people who don't debate very well.
Well, it's not. I look at it as more like a how can I say this without sounding cringe? I don't want to say it's like a moral calling, but like I'm not looking at this in terms of just like career success, because like I'm like I could just play Factorial Day and be okay. It's not like I'm hurting for money or anything. I think it's like an important thing that more people need to speak out on, and left-leaning people do so bad at like talking about men's issues without coming off as like so fucking accusatory, or you know, just calling them all evil rapists or whatever. So yeah, I think it's important to speak up against it. Yeah.
Like career success is like pretty deeply entwined with like the things that you really believe in. Like if you have a bigger platform, you can like more efficiently communicate the things that you think are good.
Mm-hmm.
My body's like a little tense from listening to it. I don't think I could do that.
Okay, well, you know, it's just we all just like to scream at each other, you know.
Yeah.
Well, what's up? How was your
there was like some like vague things that I was like, oh, we could talk about this thing or that thing, and they're all kind of gone now.
Oh, do you like write anything down ever, or?
Well, I mean, I do, but not usually about things I want to talk about. I was impressed you were making notes.
Oh yeah, I have to, because my brain will want to move to a million different things. If I don't write notes, I get uncentered in a conversation, and I make the mistake of letting the other person lead me through the conversation. So if there are points that I want to make, or if there are issues I want to nail them down on, I'll just get lost like following them around. So I have to like write notes to keep track of what's being said. Yeah.
It's like closer to jujitsu or something than it is like actual conversation. Like the moves that are being made in conversation are not for the purpose of like communicating, but rather to like to express dominance. And you have to like kind of respond to it. You have to be ensure that you are also expressing dominance. Otherwise, you, like you said, are led around, and it's really, there's no good answer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, kind of. Yeah, I guess it depends. That's one way you could frame it. Sure. Have you ever done like I know you talked to Mr. Girl. I don't remember. I feel like that conversation got weird. But have you ever done, besides that, have you done like argumentative content online, or like combative content ever?
The thing with Mr. Girl, argumentative? Did you see that?
I watched a part of it. Yeah. I was just referring to, like, besides that conversation, are you like, do you ever argue with people or anything like that, or?
No. No, I did like a debate with, like a sexual conservative recently, a couple months ago, and it turned out terribly because I think I've just been outside of the debate sphere for so long that I'm like shocked by other people's debate conversational norms. Like you said, like leading you around in conversation or like doing gotcha moves, like referring to things as like debunked. I'm like, what? And I feel like I need to like break down like what do you even mean by debunked? Like the thing, I feel like our disagreements stem very much deeper than the actual object level, and so I don't feel like I'm very good at it. And my dad was a professional debater, so when I grew up, I was very into that. But that was a long time ago.
Yeah, it really is frustrating. So I guess you do actual research, right? Kind of, as much as like polling and everything. So you have like a decent understanding of. It's very frustrating when you are trying to have like a conversation about a thing and somebody wants to like really nail something down to like one discrete number. And they want to make that the entire conversation. So like a really good example might be if we want to have a conversation about the difference in dating standards between men and women, that's a very contextual and involved conversation. But people will hit you with like the 2001 OkCupid study where it's like actually 80% of men find 90% of women attractive and only 20% of women rate the median or something like that. And like that's everything. That's the full stop of the conversation, right? And even on that one stat, there are interesting questions about it, right? Maybe women are more attractive than men, like period, for everybody. Maybe women tend not to find men as attractive as men find women attractive, but maybe they don't care about attractiveness as much for a relationship. There's like, even on that one stat, there's a million other things to rate. But then there's also a lot of questions around it, like what you're rating on a dating app versus in real life, like would context change how you rate people's appearance, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah, I just get really triggered when very complicated, complex conversations end up getting like needled down into one discrete number, and then they want to like scream about that one thing, and it's like, Jesus Christ, yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, in my culture, like the preference is something like you sort of like articulate vaguely how you disagree, and then you sort of pick a crux. Like, what is like one example of one narrow point that would probably update us both the most if we like disagreed? And so you pick the point that feels like the most important, and then you like charitably engage with that specific point. Mm-hmm. And that feels like way more efficient. Sure. Because a lot of times people get stuck on points that wouldn't actually update you if they change. Like you want to find like what's the linchpin to change your entire mindset, and like that's the thing that you should really focus on.
Yeah. I try to head people off sometimes in conversation because I'll get like I think we had an argument like 2 nights ago on like whether or not AI art counts as art, and somebody started to make the argument of like they said something like, oh well, AI art doesn't count as real art because they train off of like copyrighted data or something, and I was like, okay, well if they trained off of non-copyrighted data, would that change your mind at all? And it's like, well no, I would still feel the same way. And it's like, well then why the do you even bring this up as an argument? Like, let's move away from that and find something that's actually like you said, like the linchpin. What's like a necessary condition, not just like some auxiliary shit that you actually care about. And yeah, it is important to ask this question in a conversation, like, well, if this changed, would it change your mind on the topic at all? And they're like, oh no, not at all. And it's like, then why the f did you even bring it up? Yeah.